FarmSafe 811 starts with you. Always call 811 and wait for any underground lines to be marked.
Always keep safety in the back of your mind. Just stay humble.
For more information, go to farmsafe811.org.
Is this the tether?
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
It was a good day for both of LA's baseball teams. The Dodgers got a 5-2 win in San Diego. The Dodgers are back in action Friday night at home against San Francisco. The Angels beat Oakland 6-5 to complete a 3-game sweep. Third straight win for the Angels and their 7th straight win over Oakland. The Angels start a 7-game road trip Friday night in Baltimore. The Indiana Pacers are up 2-1 in the NBA Finals. They beat the Oklahoma City Thunder 116-107. A game-high 27 points off the bench for Pacers backup guard Benedict Mathurin. The Pacers bench outscored OKC's bench 49-18. Game 4 is Friday night in Indianapolis. Florida A&M Athletic Director Angela Suggs was placed on administrative leave with pay. Suggs is facing felony charges for allegedly running up $24,000 in personal charges on a company credit card at a previous job. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
LA's newest soul food restaurant is getting spectacular reviews. Great place with amazing food. The Sunday champagne brunch is fabulous. I saw the place on IG. We tried it for lunch. We were blown away by the food and the service. The restaurant has an inviting atmosphere and a dynamic vibe. Over the years, Lionel has catered most major Black events in Los Angeles, including all of our KBLA Talk 1580 gatherings. But now he has his own spot, Lionel's Soul Food Cuisine, and you need to check it out at 8501 South Vermont Avenue in Los Angeles. Oxtails, baked or fried chicken, meatloaf, turkey chops, pork chops, catfish, short ribs, and all the fixins. Collard greens, mac and cheese, yams, red beans, black-eyed peas, and more. And of course, hot water cornbread, satisfying drinks, and delicious desserts. Lionel's is a great place for brunch, lunch, or dinner. If it's good enough for us, it's good enough for you, because we've got your black. So, head on over to Lionel's Soul Food Cuisine at 8501 South Vermont Avenue in Los Angeles and tell Lionel you heard about it on KBLA Talk 1580.
In this prison of seclusion, happiness living on the streets is a delusion. Even a smooth criminal one day must get away. All I need is a G and somewhere safe to stay. Kicking, thinking about what the streets do to me, cause they never taught peace in the black community. All we know is violence, do the job in silence. Walk the city streets like a rat pack of tyrants. Too many brothers daily headed for the big pen. Sick is coming out worse off than when they went in. Over the years I've done a lot of growing up. Get drunk, throwing up, cuffed up. Then I said I had enough. There must be another route, way out to money and fame. I changed my name, played a different game. Tired of being trapped in this vicious cycle. If one more
I'm Tavis, Smiley. Glad to have you with us in this hour of our program. June is Black Music Month. You know, again, how we do it every day on this program in the month of June. We choose a different artist of the day, and we weave in and out of these amazing conversations with great guests like the one we have in this hour with the music of that particular artist. Today, that artist obviously is Tupac Shakur. This is Tupac's birthday weekend, and so a couple of days ago we did gospel, and one day we're doing jazz, and one day we're doing folk, and today it's hip hop with Pac, because this is his birthday weekend. And in our third hour, his stepbrother and an author about a new book about Pac will join us in this last hour today as we celebrate the rich musical legacy of Tupac Shakur, and again his birthday weekend. So Tupac got the call today to be our artist in residence all 3 hours of this program. And in this hour of our program, Christine Goodman, Pepperdine University law professor and constitutional law expert, joins us live in studio to talk about the current term of the U.S. Supreme Court. As you know, I got a right audience all across the country. We know the Supreme Court term always ends in June, and so it's just a matter of hours or days when all of these rulings, all these decisions are going to start being released of the cases they have heard this particular term, and then they'll take a summer recess and come back and torture us some more in September. But for better or worse, at least they're going to stop working in a couple days as they take their June recess. I said earlier at the top of the program that, to my mind, I think that the data bears this out, President Trump has been on a winning streak of late, that is, getting some quick assistance from SCOTUS after lower courts have put the brakes on many of his policies. And so we discuss this stuff every day. Our court system writ large has been really schizophrenic. Politically schizophrenic in the era of Donald Trump. Again, federal courts, lower courts doing all sorts of things, and then Donald Trump begs the Supreme Court to rescue him, and of late they've been doing just that. So again, lots to talk about in this hour with Christine Goodman, who I welcome in studio. Professor Goodman, how are you? Good to have you on the program today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Let me start with this. You live in L.A., you teach at Pepperdine, I live here, we all live here. The whole nation is watching what's happening here. As you know, these protests are growing all across the country. I just mentioned Governor Greg Abbott in Texas has called up 5,000 National Guardsmen, guardswomen in Texas in advance of these No Kings Day protests in Texas and all across the country. So what happened here in L.A., what happened here in California has cast a long, I think, sunbeam across the country. I say all the time that what happens in California politics either casts a long shadow or a long sunbeam across the nation. I think this is a sunbeam. So long as these protests are peaceful, I don't want to see anybody get hurt this weekend. But I have not had, over the last week or so, since these protests broke out, I've not had in studio a constitutional law expert. So I don't want to color this any more than this. Just tell me the frame through which you are looking as a constitutional law expert at these protests, what Donald Trump is doing, sending in the National Guard, Marines to L.A. over the wishes of the governor and the mayor. I was just discussing in our last hour that this administration is all about states' rights, right? Except now. Now the states don't have any rights, or at least this blue state of California doesn't have any rights. So it's a broad frame. I'm giving you all the canvas you need to paint. As a constitutional law expert, tell me what you are seeing in real time.
Thank you very much for that question. As a constitutional law expert, what I really look at is what parts of the Constitution are being implicated by these protests. Mm-hmm. We all know about the First Amendment, the right to peaceably assemble, and you mentioned when the protests are not peaceable, then that is a problem. But I think what's really going on here is the concerns about the denial of due process. Mm-hmm. Due process is something we're entitled to under the 14th Amendment. That means if the government is going to infringe on my rights, they need to go through an appropriate process. They have procedures. We have to have a hearing. We have to have an opportunity to respond. And that seems to be what sparked these protests over the immigration raids and the mass deportations. Now, in terms of states' rights, you're exactly right. This president wants certain things to be governed by certain states, and with our current situation in California, we're the stepchild, right? We're the poor stepchild in terms of states. It is almost unprecedented for the National Guard to be called in without the request and approval of the governor. The Marines coming in is actually quite scary. And so this is a situation of, while the president has executive authority to protect our borders and to address issues of national security, we don't have a national security issue here. It's being drummed up under the ruse of the president being able to step in. So that's part of how I look at it. It's heartbreaking, but yet I recognize for people who are part of a democracy, when you're outraged, there's only so much you can do. And one of the things people are doing this past week is taking to the streets.
You mentioned due process. When we come forward, I want to come straight to that issue of due process, and let's throw in habeas corpus as well, because that's what we're hearing out of this White House. Stephen Miller and others are suggesting that maybe we need to suspend habeas corpus. We suspend due process. It's mind-boggling to me, although I'm not naive, that we are in a moment right now were, given the fragility of our democracy, you've got people inside the White House talking about suspending those most basic of American rights. Let's talk about that when we come forward. Delighted to have her in studio. She is Christine Goodman, professor of law at Pepperdine. You're listening, and I'm glad about it, to Tavis Smiley.
Witness me holla at a hoot, you see how quick the game takes. How can I tell her I'm a player? And I don't even care. Creep though, weed smokes in the air. Everywhere I go, it's all about the groupie. Waiting for at the end of every show.
From Lamert Park with love, this is Tavis Smiley.
Make a move into a home of your own. With City National Bank's Ladder Up Home Loan Grant, you could receive up to $20,000 that you never need to pay back. Use it toward your down payment, save on closing costs, or to buy down your mortgage rate. Find out more at cnb.com/ladderuphome. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Property must be in a qualifying market in California, New York, or New Jersey. Additional terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Terms are subject to change without notice. City National Bank is an equal housing lender. Member FDIC. NMLS number 536994.
Hi, I'm LA City Councilman Curran Price, inviting you to join us on Saturday, June the 14th from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. as we cut the ribbon on the brand new Enel Woods Park at 8703 South McKinley Avenue. Thanks to a generous donation from Heal the Bay, the park features smart irrigation, stormwater capture systems, and space for local wildlife to thrive. And we've built a walking trail, picnic areas, native landscaping, and quiet spaces for families to gather, relax, and connect. This is part of a much larger effort to expand green spaces across South LA with 3 new parks in the works, a first-of-its-kind community center coming soon, and plans to connect it all through the South LA Greenway. So mark your calendar for Saturday, June 14th, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., and come celebrate a greener, stronger South LA at Enel Woods Park. I'm also pleased to sponsor the Climate Justice plus Black Health Symposium, moderated by Tavis Smiley, live on C-SPAN, Wednesday, June the 18th, from 4 to 7 p.m. at the Nate Holden Performing Arts Center. Just a reminder to sign up right away at the KBLA1580.com website to join me, Mayor Karen Bass, Congresswoman Sidney Kamlager Dove, Tennessee State Representative Justin Pearson, Dr. Cornel West, former Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr., the Sierra Club's Ben Jealous, and other black influencers in the climate and health fields as we continue to amplify the connection between climate and poor health outcomes for our people. Thank you for listening. I'm Councilman Curran Price.
KBLA Talk 1580 congratulates Pastor and Mrs. William Sachs Epps on their retirement from stewardship at the historic Second Baptist Church. Dr. Epps has faithfully served Second Baptist as its senior pastor for 37 years. What a legacy of love and leadership. Pastor and Mrs. Epps will be honored at a luncheon on Saturday, July 26, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Sheraton Universal Hotel in Universal City, and you're invited to attend. Noted scholar Dr. Michael Eric Dyson is the keynote speaker. For ticket information, please contact epsretirement@gmail.com or call 213-399-2103. That's epsretirement@gmail.com or call 213-399-2103. To Pastor Epps and First Lady Epps, congratulations from all of us at KBLA Talk 1580.
Sometimes he fails at fitting in, but we're okay with that. You're inside the Tavis Smiley Show.
It's just me against the world. Me against the world, baby. I got nothing to lose. It's just me against the world. Me against the world, baby. Can you picture my prophecy? Stress in the city, the cops are topping me. The Protestants full of bullets, the bodies is dropping. They ain't no stopping me. Constantly moving while making millions. Witnessing killings, leaving dead bodies in the abandoned buildings. Can't reach the children cause they're illin'. Addicted to killing and the appeal from the cap villain. Without feeling, but will they last or be blasted? Hard-headed bastard.
It's June. We continue to celebrate Black Music Month. I'm laughing looking at Miles Lowe, my board up, in there bouncing in the studio. Depending on what artist I choose every day in the month of June to celebrate their music, I have to give Miles a playlist. Say, Miles, we're doing this artist today. Here is the playlist. I told him today we're going to go with Tupac, and he said to me, I got this. And so I've given him no playlist today. It's all being curated by Miles Lowe. The best of Tupac all 3 hours today. He's a hip-hop head. He's a performer himself. And so he don't need my help today picking the best of Tupac stuff as we weave through 3 hours of this program. Tupac's birthday is this weekend, and so in our third and final hour today, it's all Tupac. His stepbrother is coming in, as is an author with a new text about Tupac. So we're going to celebrate the rich musical catalog of Tupac Shakur in our third and final hour today. We continue right now in this hour, though, with Christine Goodman, professor of law at Pepperdine University, constitutional law expert. The Supreme Court term is coming to a close. I almost said thankfully, but I'm not so sure that word is appropriate until I see these rulings that are going to come down. We'll talk about some of what we can expect, some of what they've heard during this particular term with Professor Goodman here in just a second. But before I do that, you were talking about due process earlier, and no naivete here, but it is beyond troubling, again, given the fragile nature of our democracy, even as we speak, that you'd have folk inside the White House talking about the suspension of things like due process, habeas corpus. Talk to me about that as you see it.
Sure. So the concept of due process, as I mentioned, is basically this idea that if the government is going to infringe upon your rights, they have to not only have a good reason for doing so, but once they establish that good reason, they have to follow proper process and procedures. The concept of habeas corpus means let me have my body. That means when someone is snatched up, they have the right to petition a court to be released from custody, for instance, like ICE custody. This concept of habeas corpus predates our Constitution. It's something that was eminent in England back in the jolly old England days. And so this idea of trying to suspend habeas corpus, which means you would not have the opportunity to seek redress. You would not have the opportunity to challenge a wrongful arrest or a wrongful detention, is something that, again, usually is only justified in wartime. The example that I can think of is the Korematsu case, when Japanese citizens and non-citizens were rounded up in World War II after the bombing of Pearl Harbor. That was considered constitutional because of the wartime exigencies, because we had been attacked on our shore. That's not the same situation. It's what's going on now. But people in the administration are analogizing the so-called invasion of people from other countries, even those who are here with proper papers and access. That's where the problem is.
And what do you read? What's your release of that? Excuse me. What's your read of that analogizing, as you put it?
So my read of the analogy is that it is flawed. The Korematsu case was actually undermined because they found out that even though the government was rounding up Japanese citizens because they thought there might be spies and sabotage and espionage and stuff, the government didn't actually have the evidence to support that. And so later, when additional evidence came out, that case became sort of like a stain on the record of the U.S. Supreme Court because they had actually, allowed this much of a deprivation of constitutional rights of citizens of the United States. All right. And so that, I think, is the problem here. Even though that case, it was permitted, we know that case was badly decided. Yeah. And so what's going on here is the government is going too far in trampling on the rights of citizens and non-citizens alike. You don't have to be a citizen to be entitled to due process. Yeah. If you're on American soil, you're entitled to due process.
Automatically.
Yes.
Yeah. What then, under what authority then, let me phrase it this way, under what authority then, in a moment such as this, would or could or might Donald Trump and the administration try to suspend habeas corpus? If that tends to happen only in wartime, and we're not in wartime, by what authority would he suspend habeas corpus right now?
Well, I mean, there's a couple of ways. His executive authority is with borders and national security. And so to the extent that he continues the argument that it is a national security crisis, that there is an invasion from foreign nationals, then that would give him at least somewhat of a basis for his authority. Now, technically, Congress is supposed to declare war, but the president can, as we know from Vietnam, engage in some wartime activities and just kind of let Congress know every 30, 60, 90 days. So that could be another situation where he claims the authority. Now, what's the check on the president? We have this tripartite structure, right? We've got the separation of powers. We've got the executive, we've got the legislative, and we've got the courts. When the president exceeds his power, the legislature is supposed to push up against him. When the president exceeds his power, the courts are supposed to be a backstop. But what we're seeing is the presidential power is expanding, and the others are kind of shrinking back.
What's your read? I'm glad you went there. What is your read of the expansion of presidential power? I raised this issue on this program a week or so ago, I think. And what I said then, as I recall, is that I am concerned always about presidential overreach, Republican or Democrat, because once a particular president snatches more power for the executive branch, you can trust and believe that the next president is not going to surrender that power. Donald Trump is not just pushing the envelope off the table; it's out the door, down the steps, out the White House, down the street, outside the district. This envelope is nowhere to be seen at this point. So he's snatching all of this presidential power for himself, which is dangerous in real time. And yet even more dangerous when you think about it in the years to come, whether it's a Republican, Democrat, or independent president, because again, once they snatch that presidential power for the executive branch, ain't nobody giving it back.
Okay, so we do have one example of it being given back, and that was President Nixon.
Okay.
Right? He was going to be impeached, and so and the court stepped in and said, you can't go this far. Now, we don't have a Supreme Court that would make that same ruling under these current circumstances. So that, yes, expansion of presidential power has been sort of justified by many on the right under this theory called the unitary executive theory, that the executive is, because the executive discussion in the Constitution is Article 1. Some say Article 1, well, that's the primary, that's the first, that's the most important. It is most important that the executive have these powers. And of course, those powers should be plenary. They should be all encompassing when you're dealing with national security, wartime issues, and things like that. Now, of course, the pushback to that is, when the framers wrote the Constitution, they were reacting to having a king. Hence, no more kings, right? That was what the Constitution was there for, so that we in the United States did not have kings. So we had an executive, but he did not have a lot of power. And so the Congress and the courts were there to balance. It's like a three-legged stool, to balance it. If one leg is gone, well, then we're going to have a mess. We're going to have anarchy. And so I think that is, if you go back, really going back history, the history and the tradition was that the executive would be weak. We wanted the state governments to be strong and the federal government to be weak. All right. So that is sort of a historical analysis. Now, on the expansion of presidential power, you're right. Once it expands, who wants to give that up?
Nobody surrenders power, right?
Nobody surrenders power voluntarily, except under more power, right?
Exactly.
Unfortunately, also, though, we have this example that when President Obama was president, he issued a number of executive orders and did some expansions of power from his presidential chair, in part because Congress wouldn't let him do what he needed to do. The courts were blocking him on things he needed to do. So he used the executive order as an opportunity to get some things done. Once that example has been set, now the current president has sort of blown that up and using executive orders way outside the scope of anything that's been sort of conceived of in the past.
As a constitutional law expert, tell me how you have read Donald Trump's use of executive orders.
Well, I read it as what is it like? Almost like this is my to-do list for today, right? And today I think I want to get rid of birthright citizenship. I never really liked that. Some of my advisors said there's a possibility we can get rid of it, so I'm just going to get rid of it. Oh, look, I'm watching the news, and this law firm has taken on a case that's going against my administration priorities. Okay, well, let's get rid of that law firm today. Not really grounded in law or legal advice, not really grounded in what types of things the president should, in my humble opinion, be spending time on, dealing with other crises that are actual crises. And I think it is a situation of you throw everything up against the wall and see what sticks, right? So it's a look. There's a chicken, right? Let me distract your attention from what's going on by giving you so many things that you want to challenge and get upset about that nothing really gets done and nothing really gets a full throttle defense because we're flying all over the place trying to catch and throw his balls back.
It occurs to me that what we're talking about really, Professor Goodman, as I think about it, is that the pillars of this experiment in democracy are in trouble, maybe even crumbling. And let me just unpack what I mean by this. And I always say experiment in democracy, as this audience knows, because I believe that we have a Madisonian framework for democracy that we have not as yet realized. That's just me. But the pillars of our democracy are rumbling, they're shaking, and maybe even crumbling. Hence all these No King's Day protests, as you mentioned earlier, that are taking place across the country this weekend. No naivete in asking this question, but what happens to a democracy when the pillars start to fall? And I look at due process and habeas corpus, et cetera, as pillars of our democracy. If Donald Trump can get away with knocking down these pillars, common sense suggests to me that the whole experiment is going to fall flat. That's my read. What's yours?
Yeah, and so I agree with you that the whole thing can fall flat, but it would be a long process and probably an ugly and painful process. Now, who's left if the pillars are not standing? Well, what is the nation created for? For we the people. We the people are what's left, and we are the ones that can prop up a pillar that is missing or even supply that support, right? But that requires the people to act. And the actions of the people, some of which people are engaging in right now, but part of what it needs to be also is getting accountability from elected representatives. And some elected representatives in California, we're blessed. We have a lot of elected representatives that are doing their people's will. In some places, that's not the case. And so that would be, I guess, the best hope that we would have is for the people to unite and try to prop up those pillars or demand accountability and remove those who are not following their constitutional mandate to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States.
You asked this question of a constitutional law expert. You asked this question of a plethora of constitutional law experts. You would get a plethora of responses. I'm just talking to one right now, so you get to opine as you will. There are those who believe that we are already in the midst of, or certainly dangerously close to, a constitutional crisis. As a constitutional law expert, where do you think we are on that pendulum?
Yeah, I think we are swinging towards, if midnight is the crisis and we're probably 5 minutes away, 5 to 10 minutes away. And so much of it is that because of this, again, the separation of powers, while the court can tell the president that his actions are unconstitutional by issuing a ruling, the court has no enforcement mechanism to make sure that the president follows the court ruling. And so we saw that with the deportation cases, and that getting so close to the line of defying the U.S. Supreme Court is a very scary proposition. The fact that members of the executive branch are talking about suspending the writ of habeas corpus, that is getting us closer to that midnight proposition. And the ways that the current the president is sort of leapfrogging to get to the Supreme Court, as you mentioned earlier, that is also bringing us closer to that crisis. But I think the scariest thing is the use of the military. Use of the military on domestic soil.
I want to come to that point when we come forward, use of the military on domestic soil. And to your point of Trump leapfrogging to the Supreme Court, I did in fact say earlier, in case you've just tuned in, that as the Supreme Court wraps this particular session later this month in June, they have been giving Trump a lot of victories of late, that is, as lower courts have put the brakes on his policies. He's been rescued a number of times by the U.S. Supreme Court. So a great deal more to cover when we come forward with Christine Goodman of Pepperdine Law. Glad to have her right now on Tavis Smiley.
Helping to stretch your moral and political imagination. This is Tavis Smiley.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. Marines are deploying to Los Angeles within 48 hours, joining 2,100 National Guard troops amid violent anti-ICE protests. Major General Sherman says they'll support, not police.
They're allowed to temporarily detain and wait for law enforcement to come and arrest them.
U.S. Northern Command confirmed the move Wednesday night. The family of civil rights icon Medgar Evers is opposing a Pentagon plan to rename a Navy ship honoring him. The USNS Medgar Evers, christened in 2011 by his widow, is docked in San Diego, California. Defense Secretary Hegseth calls the move part of a fight against wokeness in the military. And TikTok star KBLA has left the U.S. after being detained by ICE in Las Vegas for overstaying his visa. The Senegalese-Italian influencer avoided deportation and departed voluntarily. Get BIN News Now, on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Farm Safe 811 starts with you. Always call 811 and wait for any underground lines to be marked.
Always keep safety in the back of your mind. Just stay humble.
For more information, go to farmsafe811.org.
Right now, there are young people across the world facing a tough choice. Continue their dream of education or drop out to help their family put food on the table. You can help change their future in a single moment. See how far your support can go at unbound.org.
Is this the time? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
It was a good day for both of LA's baseball teams. The Dodgers got a 5-2 win in San Diego. The Dodgers are back in action Friday night at home against San Francisco. The Angels beat Oakland 6-5 to complete a 3-game sweep. Third straight win for the Angels and their 7th straight win over Oakland. The Angels start a 7-game road trip Friday night in Baltimore. The Indiana Pacers are up 2-1 in the NBA Finals. They beat the Oklahoma City Thunder 116-107. A game-high 27 points off the bench for Pacers backup guard Benedict Mathurin. The Pacers bench outscored OKC's bench 49-18. Game 4 is Friday night in Indianapolis. Florida A&M Athletic Director Angela Suggs was placed on administrative leave with pay. Suggs is facing felony charges for allegedly running up $24,000 in personal charges on a company credit card at a previous job. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Lena Bloom for the Bail Project.
Imagine you're stuck in a jail cell and you can't afford bail and someone offers you a way out. Just plead guilty and you can go home and kiss your kids goodnight. What do you do? What thousands have. You plead guilty whether you are or not. Cash bail makes poverty a crime. That's why the Bail Project helps those who can't afford it while fighting to end cash bail. Because freedom should be free.
Brought to you by the Ad Council.
We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. You ready?
Somebody make some noise in this joint.
KBLA Talk 1580 celebrates its 4th anniversary this year on Juneteenth.
Here we go again.
Hard to believe 4 years has gone by so fast. Oh my God. But here we are, still standing, still loving and serving our people as best we can.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
To celebrate our 4th anniversary, we have 4 big events, and you're invited to all of them.
She got a lot to say. Let's do this.
Let's get it on! On Wednesday, June 18th, we go live on C-SPAN for the 2nd consecutive year with our Climate Justice Plus Black Health Symposium. Tavis Smiley will moderate an all-star panel of thinkers and influencers as we continue our vitally important climate justice work.
Hey, Tavis Smiley, call the bomb.
On Thursday, June 19th, you're invited to join us as we celebrate Juneteenth and our 4th anniversary. There will be plenty of food, fun, great music, good vibes, and all of your favorite KBLA Talk 1580 hosts will be there.
Yeah, man.
Flip the beat. On Saturday, June 21st, there are 2 big events you're invited to attend.
I can't wait to hear it.
This year, KBLA Talk 1580 continues its annual partnership with the Empowerment Congress for a community celebration and dialogue to educate, engage, and empower. This year's theme is resilience in the face of chaos.
Can't wait to see what's up next.
Y'all ain't ready for this.
And new this year is our State of Black Women in Los Angeles Symposium, moderated by Dominique DePrima, with a luncheon to follow. Dominique will be leading a dialogue with some of the most impactful Black women leaders in Los Angeles, and you're invited to join.
This is it.
All of these events are free, but seating is limited, so you must register in advance at our KBLA1580.com website, where you can find all the details you need about each event.
Check it out.
It's our 4th anniversary, and we would love to celebrate it with you.
I love you guys so much. There's nothing you can do about it.
We're KBLA Talk 1580.
The only black talk radio station west of the Mississippi.
Thank you for having our black.
Happy anniversary, KBLA!
Love you. Love you.
He's a paradigm pioneer and the top-rated African-American talk show host in the nation, according to Talkers Magazine. You're tapped in with Tavis Smiley right now.
No doubt. To live and die in L.A., California. What you say about Los Angeles? Still the only place for me that never rains in the sun.
To live and die in L.A., where every day we try to fatten our pockets. Us niggas hustle for the cash, so it's hard to knock it. Everybody got their own thing, currency chasing. Worldwide through the hard times, worrying faces. Shed tears as we bury getting close to heart. What was a friend, now a ghost in the dark. Cold part about it, getting got smoked by a fiend. Trying to floss on him, blind to a broken man's dream. A hard lesson, court.
To live and die in L.A. Hope that doesn't happen literally this weekend with all these No King's Day protests all across the country. I want all of us to live, nobody to die. But in Texas, Governor Abbott has already called in 5,000 National Guard troops in advance of these No King's Day protests in Texas. But all across the country, there'll be these protests this weekend, pushing back on Donald Trump acting like a king. And forcing troops and guardsmen and women down the throats of people here in California. Going to be a hot summer, going to be a hot weekend. And again, I am prayerfully hoping that all these protests are peaceful, but it's going to be a lot of folks in streets. The streets are going to be hot. The block is going to be hot this weekend. It's June, Black Music Month, and so we are playing Tupac for a couple of reasons. One, because June is Black Music Month, and we choose a different artist every day during the month of June and feature the best of their catalog, some of the best of their catalog, all 3 hours of our program. And today it's Tupac, in part because this is his birthday weekend coming up, and his stepbrother will join us live in studio in hour 3, as will a brilliant author with a new book about Tupac. And so it's going to be a great hour celebrating all things Pac in our third and final hour of today's program. In this hour, we are delighted to be joined by Christine Goodman. She is a constitutional law expert and professor at Pepperdine University, and the Supreme Court term is about to end here in June. We'll get to that. I'm working my way toward that. So many other issues we have covered in this conversation that need to be addressed at a moment where our democracy, speaking of our Constitution, is extremely fragile. Indeed, one could argue on the precipice of faltering and failing and collapsing. You mentioned before the break, though, that what concerns you most right now is Donald Trump's use of the military. I said on this program a day or two ago, this is a dress rehearsal. This is Donald Trump showing you the power that he has over the military that he will use in the years ahead, maybe even use when it's time for him to leave the White House and he refuses to leave. He's showing you the power, the authority that he has over the U.S. military. I also said earlier on this program today, Professor Goodman, that I'm grateful to see military vets, Republicans indeed, military vets starting to speak up, complaining about the way he's politicizing the military in this moment. But when you said that you're concerned about the way he's using the military on American soil right about now, you meant by that what?
Well, part of what I meant is a violation of the 10th Amendment of the Constitution. The federal government doesn't have the power to use the military on U.S. soil. The National Guards, those are under the rubric of the governors of the states. And so if the governors want to call up their National Guards, as is happening in Texas, that's an appropriate exercise of power. But when the president calls up the National Guard from California without the governor's approval, consent, request, any of that, they're overstepping. The executive is overstepping and trampling on the rights of the states. Now, this is something that we see in authoritarian regimes. The military is used against the domestic citizens, against the citizens of the state, and that is a scary picture. We've seen it on the news in other countries, but not in our democracy in any recent memory.
I want to talk about the Supreme Court. That's the main reason why I had you here. All these issues are, of course, connected to this conversation. Before I get to the Supreme Court specifically and their term ending, this is some sound of John Roberts, the Chief Justice, recently talking about the way he views the way this court is showing up, the way this court is moving. This is his assessment of this particular iteration, this conservative Supreme Court. Here's what he thinks about the way they are showing up. Listen first, and then we'll let Professor Goodman unpack what the Chief Justice has to say.
The Warren Court, I think, overruled an average of 3.2 cases a year. The Berger Court, maybe surprisingly or not, an average of 3.4. The Rehnquist Court was significantly lower at 2.4, per year. The last I looked, the current court's average was 1.8. So the perspective of how many cases are being overruled and all that, I think people have a misunderstanding about how much the current court is overruling precedent.
Somebody once said, Professor Goodman, that numbers don't lie. And I responded, yeah, numbers don't lie, but people do. And people use numbers to lie, or at least reframe the truth. When you heard John Roberts, that to me, that assessment that he just offered to me is flat out misleading. That's just my assessment. I am not a constitutional scholar. At Pepperdine, when you heard John Roberts just now, what did you hear?
Well, I heard a couple of things. The first is the focus on the actual, numbers with decimal points. That makes you think it's much more precise. Many cases might partially overrule something and partially sustain something. And so do you count that as a 0.1 or a 0.2, or does that count as not overruling at all? So I think that's one thing that is misleading. The other thing that's misleading, of course, is context. When the Warren Court was happening, that was when we had Brown versus Board of Education overruling Plessy versus Ferguson. That's a case I wanted to see overruled, right? That's the one that we wanted to see overruled. Well, why did the Warren Court do that? Because some things were unjust. We were not living up to our constitutional ideals, and separate but equal was one of those things. So we were tearing down, dismantling the segregation and the Jim Crow era during the Warren Court. When we get to the Burger Court, that number is higher because we were still chipping away at restrictive covenants, at, anti-miscegenation laws, right? There were all sorts of vestiges of segregation that still existed and needed to be overturned. That started going down as we got rid of those things. But what we see with the current court is the things that it is overturning are fundamental rights, the fundamental right that had been established under the right to privacy with the overturning of abortion rights nationwide. That was a big disruption. The other thing that I see is that the current court has articulated standards to justify when it's overturning a case. But if you go through those standards, Dobbs should not have been overturned. Okay, Grutter and Gratz, the affirmative action cases should not have gone the way that the SFFA versus Harvard did. That dismantling of many of the justifications for affirmative action was not appropriate, even under the court's rubric.
Yeah, that's why it's misleading, because John Roberts suggests that overturning a case is overturning a case. It's not. There's nuance. And Professor Goodman put her finger exactly on it. I didn't know what she was going to say, how she was going to respond. If she didn't go there, I was going to help her out. She didn't need my help, thankfully. But those courts had higher overturn rates because stuff needed to be overturned. It was unlawful. It was racist. It was all the things that she laid out. That's why the overturn rate of prior courts was higher. But her point is spot on. Look at the stuff this court is overturning in real time. That is problematic. It ain't just about the numbers, John Roberts. Respectfully, more with Christine Goodman when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
From California to the Carolinas, everybody's listening to Tavis. More when we come forward.
We asked seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up.
Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month.
If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. If you need help getting your resume in order, finding job training, or landing a job, we've got 3 great options for you. First, the City of Los Angeles has WorkSource centers across the area offering free job support. The California Workforce Development Board can help you with everything from GED prep to vocational training at no cost to you. On the federal level, the Department of Labor's American Job Centers offer a full range of services for job seekers and businesses alike. Visit careeronestop.org, or for more info, just call California's Help Center or visit cwdb.ca.gov or call 916-657-1440. For the City of Los Angeles programs, go to ewdd.lacity.gov or call 213-744-7300. All these services are free to help you get your next job. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Catch Prep is now enrolling for summer credit recovery in fall 2025. As South Los Angeles' top-performing high school in English, math, and college access, Catch Prep is welcoming all 9th through 12th graders to enroll now. Catch Prep offers a small, supportive, and safe learning environment to help all students succeed, so that all students feel valued, respected, and motivated to reach their full potential. For the past 20 years, Catch Prep has helped more students of color gain admission to top-tier universities, with our graduating seniors earning a total of $3 million in scholarships, more than any other school in Los Angeles. We are dedicated to helping all students turn your college dreams into reality. Catch Prep is now enrolling. Visit us online at catchhighschool.com or call 323-293-3917. Spaces limited. Please enroll now for summer credit recovery and fall 2025. Call 323-293-3917 or enroll today at catchhighschool.com.
Freedom is an endless meeting. So let's get back to it with Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Christine Goodman, professor of law at Pepperdine. So it's June. I was saying to Professor Goodman, after 30 years plus of doing this, every June I get used to this. I know the Supreme Court is going to recess, and we're going to, for the days to come, have these rolling releases of all of these cases, these rulings are going to be rolling out for the cases they've heard in this particular term. So my time is getting tight. They're about to go on recess. What should we be bracing ourselves for in the days to come as these rulings start to roll out, Professor Goodman?
Yes. So there's quite a few things to brace ourselves for, but I'll highlight just a couple. One is a case out of Louisiana that deals with redistricting when you're drawing district lines. And there is a challenge that because the Louisiana legislature made two majority black districts, that's been challenged as sort of a racial, an improper racial discrimination against white voters. So we're waiting to hear what's going to happen with that. The other big challenge, and this one is a clash between those who think about parental rights, which is often a very important part of the conservative right, and the rights of transgender individuals. That case is called Scarametti, and it deals with a Texas bill that basically prohibits medical treatments of minors who are transgender, even if they have parental approval. So we have this clash between parents have a right to have some say in the upbringing of their children versus the lack of support and the even hostility towards those in the transgender community. And so we're waiting to hear how the court's going to come out on that. And the real issue is whether or not you consider transgender status as a gender or a sex classification, or if you consider it as something else. If it is a gender or sex classification, then the Tennessee statute would need to go through some additional hurdles in order to be considered constitutional. And so that is another one that's on the brink. And then, of course, there's the birthright citizenship case. Now, that's mainly about the issue of nationwide injunctions, and can individual federal judges enact injunctions that have the application nationwide, which has been going on. But there is a concern that the court will either reach the merits or hold it over for briefing in the next term to address the merits of whether or not birthright citizenship includes those who are born on our soil, regardless of who their parents were, or if it is dependent upon the legal status or citizenship of their parents.
Two more questions for Professor Goodman when we come forward in our remaining moments with her. I can tell you what they are right now. Stick around for her answer. Number one, I have always believed, as I'm sure you do, I think all of us of good conscience believe that America is always at her best when we're expanding rights and not shrinking rights. So I want to ask, when we come forward, as we brace ourselves for these decisions to start coming out, whether or not we're going to see more expansion or more shrinkage. That's the first question. And the second question that I sort of teed up earlier in this conversation is what Professor Goodman's read is of Donald Trump always running of late successfully to SCOTUS, the Supreme Court, to rescue him when the federal courts, the lower courts, abandon him. Those two questions in our remaining moments with Professor Goodman when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
This is getting good. Yeah, man. Tavis Smiley continues when we come forward.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
You know where you want to go in life, and City National Bank can help. City National knows the dedication it takes to build your vision for the future into a reality, and our team is here for you. We have a wide range of options to help, from personal savings accounts to interest-bearing money market savings accounts and more, all designed to help you get where you want to go. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Learn more at cnb.com. City National Bank is a subsidiary of Royal Bank of Canada, member FDIC.
Do you owe $10,000 or more in credit card debt or personal loans? With credit card debt at all-time highs, Debt Relief Advocates is urgently notifying consumers of debt relief now being made available, designed to aid consumers with out-of-control credit card debt. Those who qualify and enroll for this relief program will only have to pay back a fraction of what they owe. This is not bankruptcy or a debt consolidation loan. This is a relief program that credit card companies would rather you not know about, as it ends your debt nightmare and saves you lots of money. Consumers owing at least $10,000 in credit card debt or personal loans can now take advantage of this debt relief as the cost of living skyrockets. Debt Relief Advocates has established a relief hotline for you to call to learn what debt reduction you may qualify for. For this free information, call 800-433-8909. 800-433-8909. That's 800-433-8909. Or simply visit godra.com.
The doctor's office that accidentally mixed up your files has your social security number. The power company that mistakenly cut your service has your payment info. And the hotel that lost your reservation has your passport number. You need LifeLock because your personal info is in endless places that can expose you to identity thieves. LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points every second. If your identity is stolen, we'll fix it, guaranteed or your money back. Save up to 40% with promo code NEWS at LifeLock.com. Terms apply.
Sometimes I struggle to get to sleep. My body stopped for the day, but my mind is still running. So I take ZQuil.
ZQuil, the world's #1 sleep aid brand, has a range of non-habit-forming products to fit you and your family's needs. Invest in a great night's sleep for the best you tomorrow.
I'm awake and ready to take on anything.
Better days start with ZQuil nights. Explore our products at ZQuil.com. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Less monologue, more dialogue. Tavis Smiley continues right now.
He does indeed for a few more minutes in this hour with Christine Goodman, professor of law, constitutional law expert at Pepperdine. In our final hour today, we're going to celebrate Tupac Shakur on his birthday weekend. So the two questions I posed a moment ago, let's jump at them right quick. One, we're bracing ourselves for these rulings that are going to start coming out from the Supreme Court as they prepare to take their summer recess. More expansion of rights or shrinkage of rights? Broadly speaking.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I think this Supreme Court term could shrink some additional rights. The parental right to the upbringing of their child may be shrunk depending on how this Tennessee case goes over the use of medicines and things for transgender youth. As you mentioned, I think the aspirational view of the Constitution is that we should never be shrinking rights. We should always be expanding because the Constitution wasn't perfect. The framers knew it was not perfect and provided mechanisms for interpretation. And so we all do lose out as rights are taken away. And in part, it brings some angst, some anxiety, and a lot of concern for many communities, but particularly marginalized communities.
Yeah. Finally here then, what has been your read of the various times that this Supreme Court has come to Donald Trump's rescue when the lower courts did not give him what he wanted?
Yeah, so my read on that is this is all the result of should I say this? Mitch McConnell stalling and not allowing the appointment of a Supreme Court justice. All right, after the death of Justice Scalia,
Merrick Garland.
Yeah. And so, what are the ramifications of that? Well, now there is a very strong 6-3 majority because for these emergency stay petitions, you just need 4 or 5 justices to agree with you, and you're fine. So if you know you have 6 and maybe you lose one here or there, it's a gamble that has very high odds that he will be successful. And so I think that's why he keeps going to the courts. Now, these emergencies are delaying the decisions in other cases. We probably would have a few more decisions coming down, but the court's time is being taken up with dealing with these emergencies. What we've seen in the last 2 weeks is a lot of smaller cases coming down, and many of them were 9-0, things the justices can agree on, very short, succinct opinions. So we're waiting for the blockbusters at the end of the term.
We are bracing for effects, as they say, brace for effects. In the coming days, weeks, we're going to get a lot of decisions, a lot of rulings coming down from the Supreme Court vis-a-vis or regarding the cases they have heard this particular term. So, again, we're bracing ourselves. And we will hear in the coming days and weeks from a number of legal experts, and I hope one of those will be Christine Goodman when we call her back again to talk about these decisions as they drop in the weeks ahead. For now, we thank Christine Goodman, professor of law at Pepperdine, constitutional law expert. Thank you for your time. Thanks for coming in, and I hope to see you again soon.
Thank you. It was really fun.
I enjoyed it as well. More of Tavis Smiley as we celebrate Tupac in our third and final hour. Stay with us.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. Marines are deploying to Los Angeles within 48 hours, joining 2,100 National Guard troops amid violent anti-ICE protests. Major General Sherman says they'll support, not police.